Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. How was your Valentine's Day celebration? It's a challenging week for some people if you are not connected with a partner or a romantic interest, but it also can be challenging for those who partner and have been married for a long time. So these kitschy little Valentine's Day dinners and things like that may not be like the best thing for you and your partner. So I'm going on live today and every Friday. By the way, I've created events for these Friday live streams for the next 3 months. I'll be taking a short break during the summertime. I will still be doing maybe monthly lives in the summertime, but otherwise I will just be doing these every Friday through May. So I've scheduled those in the group today, or on this page. So if you go to the events tab on this page, you are able to see and let me know if you plan on being there for these live streams. They typically happen between 9 or 9:30 and 10 a.m. on Friday mornings. So if you anticipate you'll be around or available to watch these even while you're multitasking or doing something else, make sure you go to the individual events coming up and RSVP or let me know that you're going to be joining me live. That way I can kind of customize these live streams according to what it is you need. If you have never, pardon me, if you have never seen me before and this video is popping up in your live stream, you're like, who is this woman? My name is Jen Espinosa-Goswami. I'm a health coach and I help moms find body bliss. Sometimes that involves meal planning assistance and without counting anything. Sometimes that involves gym-free fitness and establishing consistency around your exercise. And sometimes that incorporates, lifestyle strategies, especially if you're time-starved and hungry for change in your life, but it has never worked out for you before. You're tired of the traditional diets and you want something that's a little more intuitive and following according to what you need for your lifestyle today. So that's what I help people with. I do this through a variety of ways, through health coaching. I have a membership program called 30 Days. We are having a group call for that this weekend. I'm very excited because February is all about self-love. So the same themes that I do on this page for our live stream videos are the same themes that I do for my 30 Days membership program. I open up that membership program every month at the end of the month, and you have until the first week of the following month to enroll. It's only $99 for a full month's worth of support from me. That includes weekly accountability checks, a mid-program group call with a certain theme, and I also help you decide what the most impactful daily action step you can take is and help you refine that and create more consistency around that. So that's one way I support people. Another way I support people with finding body bliss is through a VIP strategy day where it's super fun for me. Everything you could possibly need in terms of your 90-day plan to achieve your health goals. So we sit down, we understand what you're dealing with. It starts with a lifestyle inventory session. So it's a 60-minute where I kind of walk you through some very simple questions and get an idea of what your lifestyle currently looks like. And then we plot out the best action steps for you to take to reach your goal by the end of 90 days. That's not where it ends. We sit down together, we hash all this out. I create a written plan for you that you get at the end of the day. Plus, I treat you to a healthy lunch, and we have fun in between and do some training as well. Training on my process, on what you need to do and all of that. And then I follow up with a 30-day action accountability call where you and I get together over the phone so we don't have to worry about finding a location to meet, and then we check in with your progress and see where you're going. We refine if need be, but we also cheer you on for the progress you're making. So those are the two main ways right now that I support people. But today, on the post day after Valentine's Day, I'd love to hear from you. What did you do for Valentine's Day? Share with me in the comments what you did for Valentine's Day. If it was something that feels very underwhelming for you, that's okay. You know, not everyone has to be super fancy romantic and everything. That's just not how life rolls all the time. But if you feel like your Valentine's Day plans, what actually happened, was a little bit less than fun or exciting, then comment below and let me know, what would your ideal Valentine's Day look like? Like, who would be there? Where would you be? What kind of activities would you participate in? Because if what happened is not actually ideal, I mean, sometimes life gets in the way and we don't have a chance to go out and have fun with our partners and reconnect. That's okay, but that doesn't mean you can't dream about the next time you have an opportunity to do so. So let me know either your actual Valentine's Day plans yesterday or your ideal Valentine's Day plans so that you can really harness that next opportunity to take advantage of that, to reconnect with your partner. Sorry, my hair is just kind of bothering me. So today we're talking all about how to rev up the romance. Now you may be like, why is Jen talking about this? So just to be completely transparent, I'm not an intimacy coach. I'm not a relationship coach. Some of the things we're going to be talking about today are things that I very much need to work on myself in my relationship with my partner. I've been married over 15 years now, so that initial spark is perhaps not as strong as it was way in the beginning. And if that's where you are too, like you've been married or partnered for a long time, and you're like, yeah, things are kind of not so spicy anymore, just raise your hand in the comments. Like, I'm not going to call you out or anything like that, but I'm just curious to see what type of situation you are in and what type of relationship status you're in right now. So the things we're going to be talking about today are talking about romance. And first of all, we're going to get started with what romance is and how it shows up for you individually or for women in general, because most of the people who watch these are women. Then we're going to talk about just a little bit about the difference between being loved or loving to being in love, because there is a distinction there. And if you've done any work on philosophy, there's different types of love. I think they've identified there's at least 4 different types of love. We're not going to go over every type of love, but we're going to make the distinction between loving someone and being in love with someone. Now you may be wondering, well, if we're talking about self-love and I'm a health coach, then what does that have to do with romance and connecting with your partner and that sort of thing? What I am seeing with a lot of people who are not happy with their bodies or not happy with how they physically feel today, if you don't feel comfortable with yourself, it is really hard. It's that much harder for you to physically connect with someone else because you have an uncertain relationship with your own physicality. Maybe you're disappointed. Maybe you're overly critical of yourself. And when you're in that headspace, it's very difficult for you to allow yourself to be vulnerable, even to someone who you know loves you, likes the parts of your body that maybe you are very critical of. Like they could still show you love and appreciation and all of those wonderful things, and you could still not feel very romantic or still like roll your eyes when it comes time to being intimate, because it's really hard for you to be fully intimate and in the moment if you are not comfortable with yourself. So this very much ties into self-love. Also, the idea of romance is a little bit different than just physical touch. So we're not just going to talk about physical touch. For one thing, I'm not terribly comfortable with getting nitty-gritty about those kinds of things because my friends have accused me of being a prude when I was younger. So I'm very private about those kinds of things. We will talk about some of those ways and how to increase your pleasure in anticipating physical touch. So we're not necessarily going to talk about how to touch someone or how your partner wants to be touched. You can read Cosmo for all of that, if you want to read those nasty articles. Are so ridiculous and they're just recycled, but you can certainly read a magazine for those things. That's not necessarily what we're going to be touching on today. And finally, the biggest piece of showing your empowerment and your confidence in your own body and your own physical self is to be able to ask for what you want. This is challenging to do, especially if it's something that you haven't been getting so far and it's something that you identified as a need of yours. So we're going to end the live stream today with that. So in a nutshell, that's our little strategy, our little game plan for today. If you are popping on, please say hi in the comments so I can say hi back. I love to see who's joining me. If you're watching the replay, please just do #replay in the comments so I can see also who is seeing this after the fact. This video will be up all weekend long. You can go back to it. If you have to drop off, that's okay. Come back to it later on this weekend and see if there's something in there, some nuggets for you. Let's talk about romance first. What does romance look like? And I'm not talking about Hollywood romance. I'm not talking about candlelight dinners and steak and lobster, and your partner getting out the massage oil and roses in the bathtub and things like that. I actually saw someone who posted a picture of a bathtub with a bunch of like rose petals and beautiful things. It looked beautiful. It looked absolutely gorgeous. And then practically you think about it, you're like, if I stepped into that bathtub full of all of these flowers, they'd get stuck in really interesting places. And like, yeah, that's great. It looks great, but it probably wouldn't feel so great. So it's just kind of funny how when you talk about romance, some of the images that come to mind are not very practical or not even that enjoyable, perhaps. And I was thinking about this the other day. So I've been married for over 15 years, and it's great to go out to eat. However, I'm just being completely honest, we go out to eat pretty frequently, at least once a week. And while that is usually with our children are old enough now where we can actually have a conversation as a couple. Sometimes our children join in, sometimes they don't, sometimes they're bickering, whatever. But going out is not as spicy for us as it used to be. So some of the techniques that people do when they're dating are not terribly interesting anymore if you've been partnered for a while, or if you want to do something different, because as you grow older, raising my hand here, as you grow older, fighting the crowds, the romantic dating couples who are giving roses to each other and chocolate hearts and going to fancy dinners, that may not be as exciting for you because it's inconvenient in some ways. There's more crowds, there's more traffic, maybe the weather conditions. Maybe you like to go to bed earlier than you used to. Staying up all night is not as fun. So as you grow through the years together, perhaps your idea of romance is a little bit different than what Hollywood tends to demonstrate. So I'd love to hear from you if you want to share. What does your idea of romance look like? And I'll share some insights I have in terms of how romance tends to look amongst my mom friends, because I feel that for women, what we tend to think of as romance is a little bit different than what men might think of. And I'm calling out the gender stereotypes. I'm not saying that this is factual. These are just my observations. Certainly there are people who have their own unique individuality there, and I'm not trying to say that this is not true. This is true for everyone. That's not the case. But what I'm noticing is a lot of my mom friends, and I see a lot of articles around this as well, they have a lot on their shoulders, a lot physically, mentally. They're kind of tapped out by the end of the day, right? They're working, they're taking care of the kids, they're cleaning the house. And I'm not saying that men don't do these things, but men might do them to a lesser extent as a general population, which means that the women might feel like they don't have time, space, energy, or whatever to commit to romance. Because it feels like another thing, right? It feels like another thing to manage. And I certainly feel that way at the end of the day sometimes if it's been a long day. Even I have beautiful days. I can't even argue that my days are crazy busy every time. But at the end of the day, by 9 o'clock, I may not be as interested in romance. Now, because I was asking you a question about romance, my interpretation of romance, and some of this goes down to your particular love language. I published a blog post on love languages just the other day, earlier this week. I'm happy to post that down below here. But if you already have some insights into what your love language is, and one of your love languages tends to be acts of service, then for you, romance might be everything is done. Your partner puts your kids to bed. You don't have to clean the kitchen when you're done eating dinner because you already cooked dinner. Those sorts of things. Maybe you come home after a full day of work and your husband already cooked dinner. By the way, I'll say husband and partner interchangeably. So, take that as you will. You don't have to be married to be in a partnership. You don't have to be married to the same sex to be in a partnership, whatever. So I'm going to use them interchangeably. Forgive me if it's not applicable to your particular situation, whether you're partnered or not. So you might feel like romance is they do something for you. They do something for you that you typically do, and you want to go outside of the norm. That is what romance is to me. I'm very much a person who has acts of service as my love language, as one of my primary love languages. My other love language, there's a primary and a secondary, is words of affirmation. So at the end of the day, I've done X, Y, and Z. And I'm not a person who tells my partner everything I've done during the day because I feel that's kind of boring. So, but if he recognizes and acknowledges some of the things that are already done, it makes me feel good. And he doesn't even have to say you did a good job of this. He could just say, oh, thank you for putting this away, which I do it every day. But when he acknowledges it, it feels like, oh, yeah, well, I did it because it was bothering me. But now it feels good that I'm not the only one who's noticing that. So to me, that ties into my romance as well. When we go out to dinner, I enjoy it because I don't have to cook, clean, put things away, whatever. But to me, that's not romance. Like, I want to do something with my partner. So quality time is very important for me as well. And there's a trend towards that as well. So the trend of doing things together, not sitting down next to each other on the couch and being on your phones together. That's not what it's all about. But actively doing something with a certain result that is a common result that you can have. And there are lots of experience opportunities out there. There's date nights through a company called CenCup, which is CenCup.com. If you look there, they have various events designed for couples to kind of rekindle the romance there. But understanding what feels romantic to you is important, because you have to know what's romantic for you before you can share that with your partner. When is the last time you shared something you really wanted to do that made you feel connected with your partner? It's a difficult conversation to have sometimes, especially if it's something that they don't like. After so many years together, you can understand things that your partners like and don't like. And if it feels like a torture to drag them along with you to do something that you like and that makes you feel connected, it can be difficult for you to keep asking for them to participate with you. It's worth asking. We'll get to asking for what you want at the end of this live stream. But I did say I wanted to talk a little bit also about loving someone, including yourself, versus being in love. What would you see as the difference between those types of love? Curious to hear from you. And I have read all the research in terms of the 4 different kinds of love. They have like romantic love, they have the love for humanity or people as a whole. They have the caregiving kind of love, like the love you would do for a pet or an ailing parent. So there are different types of love, and you may have come across this before. But love is something you can do even if you don't like someone. So you can love yourself. You can love certain things about you. Like, I love my smile. I love my kindness and my generosity. You could love things about yourself and still not like yourself very much. You might also feel this in terms of other people in your life. There are moments when I will always love my children, always, 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 but there are times I don't like them so much. So you can actively love someone without liking them. And typically, how you show love is usually expressed through your primary love language and the ways you prefer to accept love. So it may not be something that they're looking for necessarily, but how you accept it. So you can love someone, you can express all these things, you can give them gifts, you can give them praise, you can touch them physically, and that can be like a non-romantic or non-intimate touch, such as on the shoulder or hugging, stroking their head, things like that. Those are ways to show physical touch without being intimate. There are many different ways you can express love. But again, you don't necessarily have to like the person you're expressing love to, which is a really interesting thing, isn't it? And I think that leads to a lot of the divorces that we hear about is people who express love to their partners year in and year out, and their partners may be expressing love back, but they fall apart in terms of their compatibility, in terms of liking each other, in terms of having things in common or working towards a common goal. At some point, you know, when your children get to a point where they're self-sufficient, it can be more difficult for you to find things to do with your partner that is towards a common purpose, especially when your children are grown. I think a lot of divorces tend to happen when people are empty nesting or getting close to empty nesting. Kids have moved out, they're gone to college, things like that. So you can certainly show love that whole time and not really like the person you're showing love to. So that's love. And you can show love to anyone, any age, it's free for all. Like, you can show love to an older person, you can show love to a pet, you can show love to a partner, you can show love to your children, you can show love to plants, I don't know, house plants. You can show love to anyone in any place and any time. There's no limits to that. Being in love is a totally different thing. It usually ties into romantic love. So love you might have for a partner, for a crush. If you have crushes, it's still possible to have a crush on someone and still be married and in a partnership. That's okay. So you could be in love with that. You could be in love with grand and big ideas. Like, I'm in love with the idea of sitting on a beach somewhere and working remotely wherever I choose to. Like, that could be something you're in love with. So it can be also ideas. But typically the in love piece is different than love. You absolutely have to be in love, which means excited, passionate, expressive, energized, and curious when you're in love. So there's that spark there. There's that additional piece there. And a lot of people can say, well, I love myself, I'm a great person, I have a lot to, what's not to love, but they may not be in love with themselves. So you're not excited about anything that you're doing in your life. You're like, yeah, I'm a good person. Here are ways I demonstrate love to others and to myself. Maybe I schedule in regular appointments to take care of my hair, I do my nails, I do massage. I'm expressing love. But if you have no excitement, energy, passion, belief, or curiosity around things that matter to you, like your big ideas, things you want to try that are new and novel and exciting, directions you want to go, your big ideas, the legacy you want in life, you may not be in love with yourself. And that's a difficult place to be. Here's some ways you know that you're in love, either with yourself or with someone else. You want to surround yourself with that thing. So, I mean, you can't surround yourself with yourself because you're already there. But like, you can't get enough. For example, just to throw it out there, if you're in love with yourself, means you don't just love yourself and certain pieces of you, but ignoring the pieces you don't like. If you're in love with yourself, you might be like, I take myself in all my glory, no matter what it is, you know. So you might be more comfortable doing things like walking around in the nude, or staring at yourself in a mirror, or noticing different things physically going on with yourself. I was reading an article this morning about a woman who says, develop body confidence through walking around naked and not being afraid to sit in front of the mirror and being like, oh, okay, this is me in all my glory, you know, this is good, this is not so good. And she talked about ways to kind of turn around how you feel about what you see when you're looking in the mirror. And there are pieces of our bodies that we never see, right? So this is a powerful exercise too, because you could recognize things in yourself that you weren't aware of. Why would you be aware of it? We don't see ourselves when we're in the midst of life. But when you develop a curiosity around what that is, when you develop an interest and you want to learn more and explore and be faced with yourself in all your glory, that's how you know you're in love with yourself. And you don't hide from what it is. So in love could show itself in passion. When you think about a grand idea or something that maybe has been percolating in the back of your mind for a long, long time, do you hide it? Do you keep it close to your chest? Or do you like shout it out and you're like, this is me and this is what I want and this is where I'm going, and you just share it with everyone? If you're hesitant to share it, then you may not be in love with it. Like, you're in love with it, but you're not in love with yourself, and you're not willing to take it as far as it can go. This happens a lot in relationships as well. You could be in love with someone but feel like they might judge certain aspects of who you are, including your grand ideas, including the innermost parts of you. You know, we tend to share only as we feel people care. You know you're in love when you share, not just because you think other people will care, but because you care. And that's what matters. And you're like, I care, so other people will care, and I want to share this. That's how you know you're in love. So, a little distinction there. Now, we're talking about romance. So you're like, well, none of this has to do with romance. What? So the more you understand about yourself in terms of what matters to you and your level of love, as well as your idea of what romance is. So we started with your idea of what romance is. What does that look like? What does that feel like? If it wasn't what actually happened for you yesterday, what could it be? And this is where you dive into in love. So when you're in love with something, you are passionate, you are energized, your voice gets louder, your eyes light up, you get excited. And sometimes you might see like an event come through and you're like, oh my God, I really want to do that, but I'm scared. But I don't know. But I'm afraid to tell other people that I want to do that. You might get rejected if you tell other people, but that's okay because you still matter. So just being aware that your passions are not something to be tamped down. Your passions in anything. It could be, it doesn't have to be sexual, it doesn't have to be intimate, but it could be if that's an area of your life you're currently repressing and you have some excitement or energy around an idea, but you tamp it down because you're afraid. You're afraid to share that. You're afraid that other people will judge you or not care as much as you do. Here's how to ask for what you want. This is the toughest part, right? Because even when we're with someone, maybe especially when we're with someone for a long time, we get into a routine, right? We have certain habits that we do. They pick up where we leave off and vice versa. And there are certain routines that are natural because in any relationship we fall into routine, but especially when there's other people involved like children and pets and things like that, you have to follow a routine, otherwise chaos ensues. Here's how you shake it up. And this is going to sound really counterintuitive. Schedule opportunities to be romantic. And I don't just mean with your partner, I mean with yourself. If you're like, well, I give myself 5 minutes to shower, maximum, and then I'm out the door because I got places to be. Well, what would feel more romantic to you? Would it feel more like, and when I say romantic, I mean embracing things that are exciting to you. So maybe you want to take 5 minutes and do your hair, and then that will make you feel more confident about yourself and approach opportunities to connect with your partner a little bit differently. So if your hair is wet and dragging and you know, you look like you just came through a thunderstorm, you may not necessarily feel like, ooh, I'm attractive and I want to show that to my partner. You know, so there is a ripple effect of connecting with what feels good to you. If it doesn't feel good to you, then your initial reaction when your partner approaches you is to be like, I'm good. And that's not very romantic. That's not kindling the love. That's not feeling the passion and the energy. Your passion and energy has to start from you. I'm sorry, girl. We have to do the work, right? Because once we do the work and set the pathway and get established a roadmap, it's going to follow through. But you have to establish that. If you're walking around saying, oh, nobody shows me romantic love the way I want to be shown. Well, guess what? You need to start with yourself and set those expectations. Understand what makes you feel romantic. Understand what makes you feel good. Understand what makes you go into that mindset. As women, we need to mentally connect before we can physically follow through. And that is true. Excitement and intimacy happens for women right here. It doesn't happen anywhere else. And you may already know this because in my experience, men tend to lead with physical touch more than they lead to the mental thing, right? So first of all, schedule opportunities to be romantic. That fulfills two purposes. One, it creates space for it. So remove the routine or keep the routine where it is, schedule in those opportunities so that you're like, oh, this is a priority. This is important to me, and I'm going to make sure it's there. It's not going to be if I get around to it. As a health coach, I help people establish regular, consistent habits all the time. You can make a habit of romance and intimacy. I guarantee it. Just the same way you do it with exercise, the same way you do it with being intentional about your meals, the same process. You can do this. Schedule it in. Another thing it does in terms of your romance specifically, if you schedule opportunities to be romantic, then you have the bonus of anticipation. So as women, we need to kind of prime the fire a little bit, right? That's our foreplay. Well, if you schedule something a week from now, you can anticipate it. And you can even lead up to it. So that's why movies have teasers and trailers, right? Because you're like, oh, that's 3 months away. I can't wait. So you can kind of prime yourself, because the work starts and ends with you, girlfriends. That's how it works. But you can prime yourself for that opportunity to be romantic. Schedule it in. Asking for what you want. First of all, you need to know what you want. And we've talked about different ways you can do that. You can walk around in the loft and just get comfortable with all pieces of you. You can explore different ways you like to be physically touched. And I don't mean like go and find a toy somewhere at Sex World. It's not what I'm talking about. I mean, there are lots of ways we can be touched and encourage touch that do not involve a third person. We could do different fabrics, we could do different oils, different creams, different scents, and we can do that to ourselves first so that we know what we like. So you have to know what you like before you can ask for what you want. And bonus, if you already know what you like and you have it there in your house, then when you have that scheduled opportunity to be romantic, you can bring that into the equation and say, I love this lotion. Let's do it. Don't sit there and wait for someone else to anticipate your needs. You have to be the one to anticipate your needs. You know what your needs are. Nobody knows it better than you. You need to be willing to put it forth and say, I like this. Can we use this? There you go. If it's already there, it's easier for you to just bring it. You don't even have to say anything. If you're a person who's uncomfortable with stating clearly what you want, just put it there on the table when it comes time to be, romantic. You have those opportunities to do that. Or get all the ingredients for a fancy dinner. If you like to cook at home and you want to do a fancy one instead of your typical dinner, then set out all the ingredients and have them available. Our actions do speak louder than words sometimes, so have the action step there of having exactly what you want. You don't even have to say anything. Third piece of asking for what you want, because that's part of romance, right? We're not going to get what we want if we hope that others can read our minds. They can't read our minds. We can't read their minds. And while I'm all about serving others as both a coach and as a partner, I'm very much service oriented, because acts of service is one of my love languages. We can't expect that others will serve us back exactly what we need. So making sure that you establish what matters to you by asking for what you want. Here's another thing. So having been married a long time, sometimes we get into a rut, right? You're like, okay, this is what we typically do for date night. If we even have date night, we always do A. I would like you to brainstorm on a piece of paper or out loud, whatever feels comfortable for you. Hi, make sure you say hi in the comments so I can see who's joining. Brainstorm on a piece of paper with your partner out loud, whatever feels comfortable for you. But brainstorm 5 brand new ideas for date night. And if you need help with that, I'm going to pop a little link down below the comments, because there are billions on Pinterest and things like that. Even things that are low budget, things you can do once the kids are in bed. Not all of us can leave the house and go to First Avenue and hang out and watch a concert and things like that. That takes coordinating, and that's frustrating. So I will pop a link down below of different date night ideas in case you're like, I have no idea what to brainstorm. That will help prime the pump a little bit and get you excited and get that energy and enthusiasm going. But I would encourage you to brainstorm what that looks like for you. And if you're not to the point yet where you're like, I can do this with my partner, that's okay. Just do it for yourself first and say, here are 5 things that I've never done with my partner that I'd really like to explore. And here's where you really dig deep. Here's where you dig into what feels romantic for me. So if you're a person who's like, flowers are very romantic for me, then you might want to go do like a day trip to the Arboretum or the conservatory where there's indoor flower displays. You might want to be more intentional about what types of flowers you enjoy receiving, and you can drop hints, or you can just buy yourself the flowers and enjoy them and talk about them when your partner's there. Not in a, oh, it'd be nice if someone else bought flowers like this for me, but in a, I really love the way the light shines through these flowers. Like being a very positive, encouraging, I love these flowers. Share that passion with others, and that's how they're going to recognize, oh, that makes her feel good. That is something that I can help her do because it's easy enough for me to go pick up flowers and I know exactly what she likes. I'm not saying that it's going to ultimately do that every time, but you're going to feel good anyway because you have the flowers and they make you feel romantic. So go very much when you're brainstorming these ideas, these date night ideas, and things that you want to ask for that you might be a little hesitant to do. One thing that I saw recently, I like to do things with my partner. So when we were dating, and you can even go back to your dating days, when we were dating, we would go bike riding at Lake Calhoun. We would do all these cool things together, active things. Yes, we would go out to eat at Chinese buffets. We were low budget back then. Yes, we would spend all weekend together watching movies and things like that, the typical dating things. But then we would also go bike riding together. We'd go on weekend trips to local places that we've never been to, exploring those things. When you're brainstorming these ideas of things that make you feel romantic, it's a good idea to go, knock on your past door and see, what did you before like to do? And if it's not possible, that's okay. When you're brainstorming, it's not about what's possible or probable, it's about what feels good. So go ahead and brainstorm 5 ideas there and help rekindle the romance that way so that you can learn how to ask for what you want. So if you're doing this exercise by yourself, that's okay. But then you have to take the extraordinary step of putting it in front of your partner. Now you can simply just send them a screenshot. You could just send them a text with one of those ideas and say, hey, this is coming up. Would you like to do it with me? Or whatever. Or you can even say, I would like to do this with you. Are you open to it? And then figure that out. That's one way. You can just, you can talk to them about it over dinner. You could say, well, hey, I said, this is something that would be really fun. Do you think that would be fun too? And just kind of leave it up to them and see what they think about it. Or if you did this exercise alone and not with your partner, then you can ask their input. Say, hey, I'm looking at different things we can do and fun things, and I want to know what is something that would be interesting for you, because they probably have ideas and they probably have been a little hesitant to ask. Again, you're not the only one who probably struggles with asking for what you want. Your partner may also struggle with that. So being open and curious and not critical and not shooting it down, but just being open to the possibility, because I'm sure they have excitement around it. And as you're having that conversation, you could see the excitement in their eyes, and just determine how much excitement you two can share together and see where that leads you. Those are the tips and tricks I have for today's live stream. I do have to get going. It's been 40 minutes now, 30 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me live today. Feel free to share any comments from the things I asked you. Oh, and one thing I want to end with, we shared how to rev up the romance, specifically in terms of how you view romance, the difference between being loving and being in love, and how you can rekindle more of being in love and asking for what you want. Here is a helpful thing I can share with you. So I do have a program called the Body Bliss Boot Camp. If you're new to me, you may not know what the heck is Body Bliss. Basically, it means that you should enjoy your journey. So I'm all about self-improvement and bettering yourself and your untapped potential. I'm also about enjoying the process of establishing change and consistency in your life. So the Body Bliss Boot Camp deals with that specifically. And it's a really good way to love on yourself. So much of what I do when I coach clients is teach them how to reconnect with what matters to them. So the Body Bliss Bootcamp does that in terms of your food. So rather than focusing on tracking and writing down things and paying attention to things, we talk about why, what sort of food triggers come up for you and what you can do about that. We talk about exercise in terms of, well, if it's never been a thing for you, like you haven't been very consistent or you're motivated externally, here are things you can do to kind of leverage that strength of yours. It's all about starting from your strengths and your interests and going from there. And then we also talk about mindset. And when I say mindset, it means how you view yourself and how you wish to view yourself, because there's usually a bridge to gap there, a gap to bridge there between how you view yourself today and how you wish to view yourself. So this Body Bliss Bootcamp is a self-paced program. It's an online digital program. Normally sells for $97. This weekend only for Valentine, in honor of Valentine's Day and love and loving yourself and finding your bliss, I'm offering it for $47. So I'm going to pop the link down below. It expires on Sunday. So if you're watching this video and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get a hold of this, there is a coupon code. It's LOVE, L-O-V-E. L-O-V-E. So you can use that coupon code through this Sunday, and then it expires. It's going to go away. So if you want to explore that, it's the lowest cost I have for any of my programs in any way to work with me, and it'll help you establish more bliss in your life. The more blissful you feel, the more romantic you're going to feel. So that is my special gift for you in appreciation of you showing up and being a part of this community. I will pop those links down below there. In the meanwhile, feel free to ask me your questions, connect with me, tell me your insights, and then join me next week, Friday, the 22nd at 9:30 in this on this page right here. I can't wait to see you next week. Enjoy the romance this weekend. See where it takes you, and let me know what comes up for you. Love to talk to you later. All right, this is Jen. See you later. Bye-bye.